This is 5 on 20 News with Phyllis James, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It's Monday, November 6th. Thanks for tuning in. 5 on 20 has been on a break due to our studio being remodeled, but we are back. Let's talk local headlines. Former White House advisor and Breitbart News head Stephen Bannon will deliver a keynote speech in Tucson for the Brian Terry Foundation on November 18th. The organization was established by the family of a Border Patrol agent killed in a 2010 gunfight with Mexican cartel members. Bannon will be presented with the Brian Terry Courage in Journalism and Reporting Award for Breitbart's reporting on the FBI's controversial Fast and Furious program. This program was an attempt by the FBI to root out gun smuggling in Mexico, but was criticized for lack of transparency. Breitbart reported on how the FBI lost track of many of the weapons, but kept the details from the public. Bannon was pushed out of the Trump administration last month after he was known to clash with other top advisors. He is known as a hardline nationalist who influenced many of Trump's most controversial policies, such as the Muslim ban and the canceling of the DACA program. The Brian Terry Foundation honors the memory of the killed agent by assisting families of Border Patrol agents and offering scholarships to criminal justice students. Also appearing at the event is ATF agent John Dodson, a whistleblower for the Fast and Furious program, and retired Broadway performer Norma Zimdahl. Tickets to the event are $50 and $125 for dinner at the JW Marriott Star Pass Resort and will be hosted by Fox News' William La Junes. More than 5,400 juvenile immigration deportation cases were heard in Arizona between 2005 and 2017, according to data from the Executive Office of Immigration Review. 3,300 of these children and teenagers were from Guatemala, while another 1,000 were from Mexico. Honduras and El Salvador made up the rest. These cases increased in 2014 when 6,800 unaccompanied minors crossed the U.S. border as they fled from ongoing violence in their native Central America. Honduras and El Salvador have had some of the highest murder rates in the world, according to data from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. A report in May from Doctors Without Borders found that more than 40% of Central American immigrants reported being the victim of attacks or threats to themselves or their families. More than 70 of juvenile immigrant cases in Arizona since 2005 have resulted in a voluntary deportation. Only 5% of cases were allowed to stay in the country under asylum. The remaining 25% were pending, transferred, or closed for reasons such as lack of legal grounds to deport the child. For many of these children, whether they are able to stay or not comes down to if they have a lawyer. In immigration courts, there are no public defenders, unlike in criminal courts. If defendants can't afford an attorney, then they must appear in court without one. 78% of juvenile immigrants in deportation cases in Arizona do not have a lawyer. After the surge of unaccompanied minors, the Obama administration created the Central American Minors, or CAM program. This allowed children of American citizens to apply for refugee programs protection in the U.S. from within their home country. However, the Trump administration ended part of the program in August and will completely wind down the program next year. The Arizona Department of Public Safety received over $90,000 in federal funding for an effort to reduce speed-related crashes. DPS said that the funding will help pay for state troopers' overtime expenses when they participate in speed enforcement details around the state. It will also be used to purchase 15 new speed radars. In 2016, the state reported 106 deaths, 481 injuries, and over 120,000 citations related to speeding. Slow down. Governor Doug Ducey wants to allow private businesses to set up at rest stops across the state. The move could lead to rest stops having gas stations and fast food restaurants, which are currently not allowed under state law. This is because of a 1950s era law that barred private activities at rest stops in all but 14 states. Ducey asked U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao to give Arizona an exemption to the law. This would allow the state to start a pilot project with private companies to set up shop at existing rest stops or create new ones. Ducey pointed to several other states using these public-private partnerships to provide what he calls better, safer, more modern rest stop facilities. It could also bring revenue to the state, since a similar deal in Connecticut netted $100 million in revenue over 35 years. The association representing truck stops owners, Not So, opposes the privatization plan. They say that rest stop businesses will hurt businesses built on regular highway exits and will put local tax revenue at risk. The association's president, Lisa Mullins, said that the deal is a state-sanctioned monopoly. The local tax issue was why the 1950s law was passed in the first place. Community leaders, feared that local businesses and tax collections would shrink if states allowed rest stop businesses. But Ducey called the law an archaic and nonsensical federal prohibition that punishes younger states, especially in the West. Now in national and international news, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross failed to disclose business interests with Russian oligarchs and members of Russian President Vladimir Putin's family, according to documents leaked to several news organizations. The documents show that Ross still has interest in Navigator Holdings, which was partially owned by his investment company. Putin's son-in-law, along with other members of Putin's inner circle, control an energy firm that has a relationship with Navigator. The documents were first received by German publication Süddeutsche Zeitung, which were then given to NBC News by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Ross had previously vowed to cut ties with more than 80 financial entities that he had interest in. That's a lot. At the time, Ross received praise from both parties for removing himself from his business interests, which have made him a multi-billionaire. The documents, known as the Paradise Papers, also contain references to Gary Cohn, Trump's economic advisor and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, according to the New York Times. Saudi Arabia's future king tightened his grip on power through an anti-corruption purge over the weekend, arresting royals, ministers, and investors, including billionaire Al-Walid bin Talal, one of the kingdom's most prominent businessmen. One of the detained was Prince Al-Walid, nephew of the king and owner of investment firm Kingdom Holding, which invests in firms such as Citigroup and Twitter. The allegations against Al-Walid include money laundering, bribery, and extorting officials, according to Reuters. Prince Muteb was accused of embezzlement as he reportedly hired ghost employees and avoided contracts to his own companies, including a $10 billion deal for walkie-talkies and bulletproof military gear. The purge came soon after the announcement by King Salman of an anti-corruption committee chaired by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the 32-year-old who is likely to be the next king. The new committee was given broad powers to investigate cases, issue arrest warrants and travel restrictions, and seize assets. Analysts say that the move was another measure by the prince to remove powerful figures as he increases his control over the kingdom. In the past year, Salman has become the largest decision maker in regards to military, foreign, economic, and social policies, which has caused resentment among the royal family, who are frustrated by his rise in power. The prince has also led the kingdom through a 2-year-old war in Yemen, where the government is battling Iranian-backed militants. Ousted former president of the Catalonia region of Spain, Carles Puigdemont, turned himself into Belgian police on Sunday, along with his former government ministers. A Belgian judge must now decide whether to extradite the officials back to Spain, where they face charges of rebellion, sedition, and misuse of public funds for their roles in Catalonia's attempt to secede from Spain. Catalonia declared independence 2 weeks ago following a disputed referendum last month. Spain quickly decided to dissolve the Catalonian government and declared direct rule, calling for new elections in December. Puigdemont fled to Brussels while many of his ministers were jailed when they stayed behind. On Friday, a Spanish judge issued an international warrant for Puigdemont's arrest, just as he was appearing on Belgian TV for an interview. Belgium can choose to refuse the extradition order if they fear the extradition would violate the suspect's human rights. Protests continued in Barcelona throughout the weekend, with pro-independence demonstrators holding signs depicting the government ministers as political prisoners. But the Spanish government claims that they are preserving democracy by punishing leaders who broke the law by holding an illegal referendum and then declaring independence. On Friday, Massachusetts became the first state to outlaw so-called bump stocks, devices that allow semi-automatic firearms to mimic automatic machine guns. Bump stocks were used in the Las Vegas shooting that left 58 people dead, leading lawmakers to look at the legality of the devices. Days after the shooting, the National Rifle Association even signed on to make laws against bump stocks, although they backed away from any further measures of gun control. The newly approved Massachusetts ban provides a 90-day grace period for bump stock owners to discard their devices. The ban was easily approved by the state's legislature and signed by Republican Governor Charlie Baker on Friday. The Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts, who is affiliated with the NRA, condemned the ban and launched a last-minute barrage of phone calls to the governor's office to stop it from taking place. While Massachusetts is the first state to target bump stocks, the devices are also banned in California, who has a law on the books that bans any device that allows the firearm to discharge 2 or more shots in a burst by activating the device. Multiple similar bills have been introduced in Congress, but momentum has stalled as the Las Vegas shooting becomes more of a fading memory. A recent NPR poll found that 88% of Democrats, 77% of Republicans, and 82% of independents favored a ban on bump stocks. 26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelly killed 23 parishioners at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas on Sunday. The church is located about 40 miles outside of San Antonio in a town with a population of less than 700. Officials said that Kelly may have been triggered by a domestic situation as he sent his mother-in-law, a parishioner of the church, threatening text messages before the shooting. Wow. Officials also say that the attack was not racially or religiously motivated. Witnesses say that Kelly entered the church wearing all-black tactical gear and started unloading bullets into the walls from outside the church. 2 people were killed outside the church, while another was killed being transported to the hospital. Victims range from age 2 to 72. Kelly fled the scene after the shooting and was chased by police until he fatally shot himself inside his car, sitting beside 2 other guns. Investigators are seeking to find out how Kelly obtained the guns since he did not have a license to carry. According to the ATF, Kelly purchased 4 weapons over the span of 4 years and even posted a photo of an AR-15 on his Facebook page. Kelly was a former member of the Air Force who was given a bad conduct discharge in 2014, which may have made him ineligible for a firearms permit. An Air Force spokeswoman said that Kelly was court-martialed in 2012 for assaulting his wife and child, sentenced to confinement for 1 year and reduced in rank to E1. Officials have not yet released names of the victims. This was 5 on 20 News with Phyllis James. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all our social media accounts for all the latest Creative Tucson news and content. Feel free to bother us at info@creativetucson.org. 5 on 20 has been on a break, but the Creative Tucson cameras were still rolling. North and All Souls footage will be coming soon. One last thing, don't forget to catch Locals Only live in Studio 2A right here tonight at 9. Thanks for watching and stay creative, Tucson.